10 minutes later, the front door burst open and the sound of heavy boots echoed through the marble hallway. Kemi was dragged back into the house like a stubborn goat resisting the pull of the rope. Her scarf had slipped halfway down her head, strands of hair sticking to her sweaty face. Her eyes darted frantically, searching for a friendly face, but all she found were the cold stares of the police officers flanking her. Behind her, 2 more policemen stepped in, their dark uniforms absorbing the warm light from the chandelier. The entire compound was still swarming with officers. Roland had made sure of it. The air inside the living room felt heavier than it had all morning. Chief Roland was already seated on the couch, back straight, his elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped together. On the glass center table in front of him lay the syringe and small brown injection bottle Kemi had dropped earlier. They sat there like silent evidence, gleaming under the lights. The officers forced Kemi to kneel on the thick rug directly in front of him. Behind her, 2 policemen stood with arms folded, blocking any path of escape. The staff, maids, guards, even the driver, hovered quietly around the edges of the room, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear. Roland's voice was quiet, almost too quiet. "Kemi, why are you running? Did you do something wrong?" Her voice shook as she stammered, "No, sir. I didn't." "Then why did you run away?" His eyes locked on hers. "Why were you trying to escape? When I asked you what you were administering to my son, what exactly is this syringe and this injection you've been giving to Junior?" Her gaze flicked toward the table, then back to him. "Sir, it's just vitamins." Roland leaned back slightly, his tone sharp but still calm. "Kemi, this is just vitamins? Really? Are you sure? Are you sure you're telling me the truth?" He sat forward again, his voice dropping to a deadly low. "If you don't tell me the truth, you are going to regret it for the rest of your life." I'm innocent, sir," she began, her voice trembling. "Kemi," Roland cut in, "I'm not saying you're not innocent. I'm asking you to tell me the truth. What is this injection? Why did you run when I asked you about it?" His eyes bored into her. "If you do not tell me the truth, I will make sure a doctor comes right here and injects you with this very same drug." The room went so still that the hum of the air conditioner sounded like a roar. Kemi froze. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Then, like a dam breaking, she blurted, "Sir, I will confess." "It's your wife, sir. Your wife asked me to inject him with this." Roland's eyes didn't blink. "What is this? What exactly is this?" It's an injection for dogs, sir," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The reaction was instant. The policemen exchanged sharp looks. Several of the maids gasped loudly. One of the guards muttered, "Injection for dog?" like he couldn't believe the words had been spoken. Roland's voice hardened. "So you've been injecting my son with a drug meant for dogs?" Kemi nodded weakly, her hands shaking. "But tell me, Kemi," he pressed, "what does this thing do if you inject it into a human being's body?" She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. It causes gradual internal organ failure, and then, eventually, death." The words dropped like stones into the silence. "So you are trying to kill my son?" His face was carved with seriousness, his tone flat but loaded with fury. The entire room froze in collective shock. Even the police officers shifted uncomfortably, as if the truth carried a weight none of them had expected. And then, as if the scene needed more fuel, the sound of slow footsteps came from the hallway. Roland's wife, Adesua, appeared, her silk maternity gown flowing around her big belly. She was rubbing her eyes, clearly woken from a nap, and her voice was irritated. "Who is making all this noise? I'm trying to sleep. I've not slept all day. Can't I get a moment of peace in this house?" But the moment her eyes swept the room, taking in Kemi on her knees, the police officers, the grim set of her husband's jaw, and the syringe and vial on the table, she froze mid-step. What is going on here?" she asked, her voice suddenly uncertain. Roland turned to her slowly. His voice was measured, every word deliberate. "Yes, I should be asking you what is going on here. Kemi just confessed that you paid her to inject Junior with this injection, a dog injection, to kill my son slowly. Can you explain? Adasua's eyes widened, then her expression snapped into anger. What do you mean? What kind of accusation is that? And you believe her? Over me? Every time you take sides with strangers? First it was Dupe, now it's Kemi. I'm tired of this marriage. You don't trust me. You don't believe me. Roland's voice stayed calm but sharp. It's not about belief, Adasua. I'm asking you a question. Defend yourself. She told me you paid her to inject Junior with this, so he would die slowly, undetected. Is she telling the truth, or is she lying? She's lying, Adasua shot back. She's a liar. Why would I pay a nurse to kill my own child? She's lying. From her knees, Kemi's voice rose in disbelief. Ma, I'm lying? How? I have your voice notes. I have our messages. I have proof we've been in this business for months now. You contacted me after Junior's accident, told me to be his nurse and give him the injections. You paid me every month, even gave me extra to do the job. I told you it was risky, but you promised me big money. I even have the receipts for the money you sent me last month. It's all on my phone, sir. She looked at Roland, desperate to be believed. Roland turned to his wife, his tone like steel. Did you hear what she just said? Are you saying she's lying? Do you want us to dig to the root of this matter? You know me. You know I can be brutal when it comes to finding the truth. It will only take me one call to know everything. So you better start talking now. Adasua's lips tightened. She's lying. The back and forth dragged on, Kemi insisting she had evidence. Adasua denying, Roland pressing harder each time. The tension stretched until it felt like the air itself would snap. Finally, Adasua's composure cracked. Her eyes filled with tears, her shoulders slumped, and she whispered, I didn't mean to kill our son. It's just, Junior is not our son. The words hit Roland like a physical blow. It was as if someone had poured a bucket of ice water over his head. He turned slowly to her, his voice barely a whisper. What did you just say? Her knees buckled and she sank down to the rug before him. 7 years ago, you know how we were battling with childbirth, how your family members were threatening me. They said they would bring another wife for you. I was scared. I didn't want to lose everything, so I lied that I was pregnant. I told you I wanted to go to the U.S. to give birth, but I left just 3 months into the fake pregnancy. Roland's eyes narrowed, his chest rising and falling in quick bursts. She continued, tears streaming down her cheeks. The truth was, I was never pregnant. When I got there, I wore a thick baby bump until the day of delivery. I had already arranged with a hospital in the U.S., and they got me a baby who was being given up for adoption. I brought the baby home as ours. That baby is Junior. Roland's voice cracked. You mean you took another baby, brought him into my home, and said he was my son? Yes, honey, she whispered. I did it for us. I didn't want your family to destroy our marriage. Our home was on fire, and I didn't want to lose you. I went to the U.S. with my mother and brought back another baby, Junior. Roland staggered back, quickly sitting down to steady himself. His voice hardened. Okay, so you brought in another man's child, a stranger, into my home. Now tell me, why are you trying to get rid of him now? What has he done to deserve this wickedness from you? Her eyes dropped to her belly. I'm pregnant with our own baby now, and a few months ago I was cleaning your office. I saw some documents. I saw you had given everything to Junior. You made him your next of kin. If you've given him everything, what will happen to my real child, to our biological child? Her voice shook with emotion. Without Junior, my child will have everything. But if Junior is around, my biological child will end up with nothing. So I had to act. I knew you cared for Junior deeply. I staged the accident, made him sleep so he would fall down the stairs. When that didn't finish him, I contacted Kemi. I paid her to inject him with the dog medicine, slowly so no one would suspect. Once he was gone, my child would inherit everything. Her words fell into the silence like poison, Everyone in the living room shouted, "Ah!" in disbelief. Roland just sat there silent, his face unreadable, but his eyes were cold as stone. The room was so quiet after Adasua's confession that you could hear the faint hum of the fridge down the hall. Chief Roland didn't speak. He didn't even move. For over 10 minutes, he sat in his armchair with his head bowed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together so tightly the knuckles turned bone white. No one dared break the silence. Not the police officers standing guard, not the maid standing by the walls, not even Kemi, who was still kneeling on the rug, her shoulders trembling, eyes darting between the man she had wronged and the door she could no longer run through. It was as though the entire house was holding its breath, waiting for him to erupt. When Roland finally lifted his head, his eyes were sharp and wet, a strange combination of grief and fury. His voice, when it came, was dangerously calm. "Officer," he said, "arrest this woman." The lead policeman stepped forward. "Take her away for injecting my son with—" "Dog injection," Roland continued, the words catching in his throat. "Let the medical association deal with her. Make sure she never wears a nurse's uniform again. Take her off my property." "Yes, sir," the officer replied. Two policemen hauled Kemi to her feet. She was limp now, her defiance long gone. As they dragged her toward the door, she stumbled, her shoe catching on the rug. One officer yanked her upright and shoved her forward. She looked back once, but Roland's eyes didn't flinch. He was watching her the way a judge watches a convicted criminal. No pity, no hesitation. The officers pushed her through the doorway. The sound of the gates opening echoed back into the house. When the noise died, Roland turned and walked slowly toward the staircase. His footfalls were measured, deliberate. "Honey, please." Adasua's voice trembled behind him. He stopped but didn't turn. "I'm sorry," she rushed on. It was the devil's work. I didn't want to lose everything. I didn't know how to tell you the truth without losing my marriage. Please, forgive me." He turned then, his face an unreadable mask. "This marriage," he said, voice low but heavy, "is over as of right now." Her eyes went wide. "Roland, my lawyer will file for divorce and custody of our baby when you deliver. As of this moment, you are no longer my wife. Pack your things and go back to your mother's house. When you give birth, we'll talk about custody. But for now," he stepped closer, his voice a blade now, "I never want to see you anywhere near Junior. Whether you adopted him or you picked him from the gutter, I don't care. He is my son, and he will forever be my son." She took a step forward, tears pooling. "Please, please. It was a mistake. It was greed, blindness. Forgive me." But Roland had already turned to the headmaid. "Pack her things. Everything. I don't want a single thread of her cloth left in this house." Within minutes, the house came alive with movement. Drawers opening, wardrobe doors banging shut, suitcase zippers rasping. By the time the last bag thumped down the stairs, Adasua's cheeks were streaked with tears, her belly protruding beneath her dress like a cruel reminder of what might have been. Roland stood in the foyer, unmoving as they led her out. The gates closed behind her with a final, echoing clang. That night, the mansion was quieter than it had ever been. Roland walked down the corridor to Junior's room, each step heavy with the weight of the day. Inside, the boy lay as he had for months, eyes closed, skin pale, chest rising and falling with the help of machines. Roland sat beside him. He reached out, brushing a hand over his son's hair, then his cheek, then his limp hand. His palm rested lightly on Junior's leg, as though willing life to flow into it. "I don't care who you are," he whispered, his voice cracking, "or where you're from. All I know is that you are my son, and I love you." His head dropped forward until his forehead rested against the boy's arm. He stayed like that a long time. When he left the room, he didn't go to bed. Instead, he went to his office, locked the door, and let the dam break. He wept, loud, aching sobs that racked his shoulders, the kind of crying a man does only when the doors are closed and no one can see. He cried for his son who had almost been stolen from him, for a marriage destroyed by greed and conspiracy, for the years of trust now ashes in his hands. The next morning, sunlight found him still at his desk, his eyes swollen but his back straight. He sent for Dupe. She came in wearing her usual calm-like armor. "Thank you," he said, the words carrying the weight of the night. "Thank you for opening my eyes to everything that has been going on. But my son is yet to wake up. What do I do now?" Dupe didn't hesitate. "Get new doctors and a new nurse, someone loyal only to you. They must administer the right medications, detox his body, flush out the toxins. Start therapy immediately. And, sir," she paused, "when he wakes, I will leave, so get him a good nanny too." He nodded, already making mental lists. "It will be done." By the afternoon, the house was full of quiet, purposeful strangers, specialists in white coats, nurses with clean reputations, a physiotherapist who handled Junior's limbs with reverence. The old medication regimen was dismantled. The slow, deadly drip was gone. Instead, new fluids and treatments began to flow. Days turned into a week. Slowly, the poison began to ebb from Junior's system. Monitors showed his organs fighting back. By the end of that week, the most miraculous thing happened. He began breathing without the machine. Roland clung to that as proof of what Dupe had promised, that there was a way back. Exactly 1 month later, the call came. "Chief, he's awake." Roland didn't even hear the rest. He was out of his chair, out of his office, keys in hand. The drive home was a blur of speed and horns and the pounding of his own heartbeat. When he reached Junior's room and saw those familiar eyes blinking up at him, something in him broke open. He rushed forward, sank to his knees, and wept. Tears of joy, relief, awe. "I thought I'd lost you," he choked, kissing the boy's forehead again and again. "Not again. Never again." Doctors and therapists crowded in, adjusting pillows, checking reflexes. Roland hardly noticed. He was lost in his son's gaze. In the days that followed, he brought in even more specialists. Therapy sessions doubled. Slowly, Junior began to respond. First a twitch of his fingers, then the faintest smile, as though his soul was slowly finding its way back into his body. One quiet morning, Dupe stepped into Roland's study. He looked up from a pile of documents. "Sir," she said, "your son is recovering. My work here is done." Roland's throat tightened. "Dupe, how can I repay this kindness?" "You don't need to repay me," she said gently. "Show this kindness to others. Forgive, but be careful. Don't send your wife to jail. Just be wise going forward." He nodded, though the idea of forgiveness still felt like a wound too fresh to touch. That same afternoon, she packed the same small box she had arrived with. She went to Junior's room, kissed his forehead. "Hello, Pumpkin. I'm glad you're awake. It's time for me to go." She said goodbye to the other staff, her steps unhurried. Upstairs at the window of his study, Roland watched her walk away. He was grateful, more than words could carry, and curious. Who was this girl who had turned his life upside down, or perhaps right side up? He would probably never know, but he knew this. She was his angel in Ankara. 1 year later, Junior had recovered completely and was back in school. His laughter filled the house like music that had been missing for too long. In that same year, Adesua gave birth to another boy, Daniel. She fought hard to keep him, but Roland took her to court. He presented everything: the lab results, the CCTV footage, Kemi's testimony. The judge didn't hesitate. Custody of Daniel went to Roland. Adesua could visit only under strict supervision. She returned to her mother's home with nothing. Neighbors said she cried often, sometimes shouting at her mother for advising her down a path that had destroyed her marriage. Roland, meanwhile, built a fortress of safety for his sons. The best nanny cared for them. More cameras were installed. He worked mostly from home, rarely leaving their side. He told himself that one day, if the right woman came along, he would remarry. Not for love alone, but for a partner to help raise his boys. But for now, he was content. Both sons were healthy, both sons were happy, and so was he. And in quiet moments, he would remember Dupe's voice and whisper into the air, "Thank you. Thank you for watching. If you were Chief Roland, what would you have done differently?" Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you still haven't done so by now. Until I bring another intriguing story your way again, see you in the next one.